for us today, and it's talking about quantitative data versus qualitative data, and we're going to do that. It really isn't a lot. Most of it is just going to be more question and just kind of reasoning it out. I did want to show you all the homework stuff and how to activate that, but if we can't get into the website, we can't do that right now. So I will show that, and hopefully we'll be able to get us in tomorrow and everything. So, all right. All right. So we're going to be talking about qualitative versus quantitative data. So if I say qualitative or quality in terms of information, what comes to mind? Okay, words, and what did you say? Is it efficient, good enough, things like that. All right, so on qualitative, we're looking at things we can observe without taking numbers. So like we can look at it, what color is it? What shape is it? Is it liquid, solid, gas? Is it, things like that. So observations that we can make without really interacting with something. Versus quantitative. So when you say quantitative, what do you think of? Numbers. That's going to be measurements, like on a scale or temperature, things like that. So things that we can do with that. So kind of did this as a T-chart. So qualitative data, it's going to be more descriptions. So you're going to be dealing with descriptions. It's data that can be observed but not measured. So things like colors, textures, smells, taste, appearance, etc. So qualitative is quality, and then quantitative deals with numbers. So it's things that can be measured. So you're going to be looking at things like length, height, area, volume, weight, speed, time, and so on, temperature, all of those things. So quantitative is quantity. So give a live thing. All right. So when we're talking about this, just thinking about qualitative data at first. All right, I have two substances here. I have lead nitrate. And so I'm going to show you what it looks like. If I can get it to come out my little eyedropper here. All right. So if you look at, you can barely see it, but if you look at the lead nitrate that I put in this beaker, all right, what would be some qualitative observations of it? All right, it's clear. What's something else you can describe it as? It's a liquid. All right, that would be qualitative. What would be a quantitative measurement we could take of this? How much there is. I'd have to use a graduated cylinder or something that's a little more precise than this beaker to do that, but I could do that. I could get that. I could also find out how much what mass it is, things like that. All right, so that's my lead nitrate. All right, I have another substance here called potassium iodide. And I may just have to pour it. All right. Now this is where qualitative gets a little bit tricky. All right. What about this one as far as qualitative descriptions?
It's clear.
It's clear. All right. It's a liquid. From that standpoint, can we really distinguish one from the other? No. So we might have to lean more on quantitative for this one. We could probably see if they smell a little bit different or something like that. But both of these, I can tell you, are kind of odorless and colorless right now at this point. All right. But we could measure some quantities about it. We can measure volume. We could measure temperature. We can measure things like that. Now, if you're in the back, you may have trouble seeing this because I'm not going to be able to, well, I'll just do it up high as I can. All right, so I have my potassium iodide here. And then, oh, good morning. Thank you. All right, I have the potassium iodide here, and then I have my lead nitrate. So qualitative observation, tell me what you see happen. All right, it turned yellow. So qualitatively, can we, what some observations that we can make that whenever I combine these two liquids together? All right, it changed color. We could also make an assumption that a chemical reaction occurred because now this is a completely different substance. And in fact, it's the yellow stuff is solid particles that were created. If I let it sit for a day or two, it will settle out. And so you'll have a layer of a clear liquid on top and a layer of solid yellow crystals that goes on the bottom. All right. So we can make some qualitative things of that. Now, quantitative, I can drain off the liquid. I could measure just the mass of the solid that was formed and all of that and look at it that way. So when we're doing labs, some of the labs that we do will only be qualitative labs. There's no numbers that I'm expecting you to get. All I'm expecting you to do is observe things and observe changes. All right. Some of the labs that we do will be very number driven. All right. But you should be able to kind of recognize when you need to do one versus the other. And we actually do it at the end of the year now, but it used to be one of the first labs I did was called a flame test. Flame test, you can really, unless you have very, very, very specific instrumentation that can measure like light colors and things like that, light frequencies, it's going to be very hard to get numbers on that. But it's very easy to say, okay, I burned that one, it turned pink. I burned that one, it turned orange. So we can do that and we can talk about those things and we can make some inferences, but we can't necessarily get hard numbers on it. All right. Does everybody have what they need off of this slide? Or do you need me to wait a little bit more? All right. So, what are some ways that we could measure this image as far as quality? What could we talk about? All right, we can talk about the colors and maybe the contrast of colors, things like that. The shapes. We can talk about, that it is a drawing or a picture or things like that. If I wanted to get some quantities of it, what things could we do? Okay, we could count how many objects. So like they have these triangles here. I could say there are 3 triangles. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paint spots. We could do length and width and get area. 2 paint brushes, things like that. So there are some things that we could count on it and things like that. So this isn't really anything you have to write, but if we come up to what they said, So qualitative data, we could talk about the red and green color. We could talk about the gold frame or yellow frame. If it was a real painting, we might be able to detect the smell of it. If it's digital image, really no smell. But we could look at the texture, brush strokes, and all that in real life. If it, with this image, it's not going to be like that. But we could even, as far as if you've ever been on a museum tour and all of that, they talk about, or they'll ask the question, how does it make you feel? How does this piece of art make you feel? Things like that. So you can talk into that and all of that. Now, on the quantitative side, the text side, again, you're going to talk about the dimensions of it, the area of it. We could actually weigh the painting and see what it is. We could talk about surface area. We could talk about how much they are selling it for, or how much did it cost the last time somebody bought it. All right. So that would be more outside of this class, but we can do that. All right. So, and I'm just going to pull this up. So we got our little latte here. Qualitatively, we can describe it by the smell. And some of you, or if you're familiar enough with getting a coffee and things like that, you probably can smell it right now. You can talk about the appearance of it, the froth, the things like that, the taste, what type of cup it's in, all of those things. Quantitative side, and this would be more like what Starbucks is concerned with. How many ounces of it is it? What temperature is it served at? What size cup? And then how much does it cost? So that's going to be that side. All right. Now, looking at the students, what are some qualitative things that we can say about these students? All right. So we talk about hair color, their outfits, skin color, the accessories that they have. We might even be able to make some assumptions about personality differences based on what they're wearing and things like that. So we can make some judgments, things to that nature. All right. Anything quantitative that we can do? All right. We could measure height and put them in categories of height, maybe shortest to tallest. Say again? Length of hair. We could separate them into things of ones that wear glasses and ones that don't. Like we can categorize them by numbers there, maybe make some graphs, things like that. So again, we can look qualitative. We can look at how they appear. They're all smiling, so we can assume that maybe they're all friendly. I don't know how we could get if they're civic minded just from this picture, but possibly. Environment. Okay, I see what they're doing. So you got the girl with the sunflower, so she's probably an environmentalist. You maybe have the one that has the tennis stuff, school spirit. And then you really have to start making some assumptions from there. All right, quantitative data. Now, this isn't our school, but like if we just talked about the freshman class here, we could do number of boys, number of girls. Our class size is run around 300, 320, depending on the year. Things like that. You can look at how many of them are in honors, how many of them are in regular, how many are in Jumpstart, how many are in Topps College, Topps University. You can look at those kind of things about them aside from just this. All right. So make one qualitative observation about this picture. The grass is green, I heard. Car is red. The bridge is flooded out. I didn't hear that one. Sky's pink or purple. All right. Yeah. I can say, other than it being flooded, I mean, it looks like everybody's, other than it being flooded and the driver, everybody else kind of looks like they're peaceful. You know, they're kind of happy with the situation. All right. So, you know, we can look at this again. We can look at this. We can look at the aspects of it and make some determinations. Now, is there anything, or what would be some things that we can quantize about this? All right, how many ducks? Now, we could probably measure the length of the bridge. Trees, we could get a number of the trees that are right there in that immediate area. I think it'd be a little more difficult further back. We could maybe quantize how big some of those fields are, you know, or how many, um, you know, what percentage of it is cultivated versus what percentage is left free, things like that. All right. So again, when we look at that, we have to think about what things can we measure. We could measure how high the river is elevated compared to its other things like that. All right. Kind of same thing here. What would be one qualitative observation about this picture? There's a tornado. My first thought is the guys in the van are about to die. But, you know, that's... and then I would say the guy in the tent's probably not in the safest place either. So looking at the qualities again, just what things can you immediately observe without changing it, and then going down to quantities. If this was a real life scenario, we can look for data that maybe talks about the wind speed of the tornado. After the tornado has passed by, you can they tell you how much, you know, how long was the path that it went over, how much destruction did it cause. Ultimately, how much did the insurance companies have to pay out for it and things like that. So that's kind of my spiel on quantitative versus qualitative. So again, for us, when we're looking at stuff in the lab, we're either going to have the labs, you're going to have some quantitative observations where you're measuring things, measuring volume, measuring mass, measuring temperature, all of those aspects, and then you're going to have quantitative data. Quantitative data was the measuring. Qualitative data where you're looking at specifics of, you know, just what color was produced, what did it look like, did you observe a gas, did it form a solid, did it stay liquids, things like that. So I'm going to let this sit so that y'all can see tomorrow that when it does separate it. And all of that. And then I think I'm going to give Southeastern one more shot. And if not, I'm just going to show you some things.